Okay, so this is our fourth session, the Private Club Leadership International Roundtable. Again, if you're joining us for the first time, don't know me, I'm Gabe. You can call me Gabe. That's what my friends call me, and we're all friends here. But I have the Private Club radio show that we do every single Monday, and I've been doing it from my home these days. Usually I do have a little studio set up at the office. But I also do the Let's Play Through show. It's a golf travel show, and written a number of books for the industry. Really, I do all this pretty much as a labor of love for the industry. And I appreciate you guys all taking your time to be here this week with us. Chris, are you on the line by any chance? Chris Krimitsos? I want to tell you, he's going to probably join us, but my friend Chris wrote what I think was my favorite book of last year. And I was actually honored enough to actually write the foreword to this book. Right now, it's actually the #1 selling book on Amazon in terms of business and business leadership. And because of what's going on right now, he's actually giving this book away 100% free, at least the Kindle edition. So if you want to grab a Kindle edition, go over to Amazon, just simply type in Start Ugly. I'll put a link down at the bottom as well. But he's giving it away. And I think if you were to share this with your members, you've got a lot of people who are members that have businesses that run organizations. This is just such a timeless, well-told tale. It's something that everyone can really relate to right now because, hey, we're all starting ugly because we're all sitting in our houses, probably in our underwear. So it's a great book. It's free to download, 100% free. You don't even have to give an email address, anything. Just go to Amazon and download it. It's Start Ugly. So if Chris joins us, I'll let him tell us a little bit more about the book, but send it to your members. They'll love it. All right. So we're going to get into today's session here, which is we're going to have 4 discussion topics. I always like to just set the ground rules here in the beginning. So I hear a few people that are unmuted right now. If you don't mind, please mute your microphone. If you don't know how to mute your microphone, down in the bottom left of this screen, you should have a mute button. You can mute and unmute yourself. And what we'll do is it looks like we got 20, 30 people on the call last I checked. Just limit your answers to around 30 seconds or so. There's no hard time limit. I'm not going to ding you with a bell or anything, but just because we have so many people we want to get to during this call, please make sure to just limit your comments to a reasonable amount of time. We're going to do 4 or 5 topics today, and if possible, I'd love for everyone who wants to chime in to chime in. These are really important issues right now. I think we're starting to see a shift. I think we're shifting out of lockdown mode into restart mode sooner than later. Maybe not everywhere, and it's going to be dripping out, but we need to start changing our mindset. That's my firm belief here. So that's pretty much what we're going to be discussing today. Joe Trauger of the National Club Association is very generous with his time to be with us on this call. So thank you, Joe, for being here. He's going to give us a quick PPP update so we know what's happening with clubs. Thank you to everyone, by the way, who posted these topics. These topics came from the community, from all of you here. These were questions that you wanted to hear answered or things you wanted to discuss. So thanks for all those who sent those in. So Joe will be up first talking about PPP. The other questions we're going to talk about is how do we open up dining operations during this social distancing time as things start to open up. We're also going to talk about golf operations changes for all of you golf courses out there and how that will change as we open up, or what things that you have started now need to carry over. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how do we fill up our membership and really restart getting our pipeline going again, because it's going to be really important to get our members back. And if we've lost any during this time, how do we start communicating and getting new people in the door? And if we have time, we're going to talk about disaster preparedness plans, and if you've started this. So I'm going to unshare my screen. Joe, if you're on the line, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you just to give us an update on what's happening in Congress and in Washington, D.C., please.
Sure. Thanks, Gabe. Always a pleasure to join you. So basically, the Senate yesterday passed a supplemental measure to boost up the funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. This is a program that was stood up a couple of weeks ago under the CARES Act, and is basically an SBA program that provides loan forgiveness if at least 75% of the loan is used to keep staff on payroll. One thing I do want to make sure that everybody is aware of is that 501c7 clubs are not eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program, and it's important to understand that and get that message out. I have been made aware that a number of clubs have been approved, however, and that puts a club in a very sort of precarious position because technically they are not eligible for those programs, and there are some potentials for prosecution and/or at best you'd have to pay back the money immediately. So just want to make sure that that's absolutely clear.
Wow. Okay. So I know we just had a new vote yesterday. What happened with that, Joe? And what's going on?
Yeah. So the Senate passed a supplemental measure that includes about $320 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program. It also includes $60 billion for the Emergency Injury Disaster Loan Program, which clubs are eligible for. And also $75 billion for hospitals and $25 billion for additional COVID-19 testing. The House is supposed to take it up tomorrow, and it should pass, and the President has already indicated he'll sign it.
How about further legislation? Is there any hope of maybe including clubs in another spending bill or anything, Joe, happening right now?
Yes, that's one of the things that NCA is working with all of our allied associations and groups with in trying to make sure that clubs are included in the next, what people are calling phase 4. Those discussions are likely to really ramp up after this package gets through and really ramp up next week. We've been reaching out to many offices and leadership and key committees to see if we can get some support. This definitely delivered the message, and I know CMAA has put out, a contact Congress, as NCA has. So we know that members, of both organizations and members of clubs are reaching out to their representatives and senators, urging them to include clubs in the next package. It's important to note that, the workers that, at clubs, many probably don't often think about, what type of organization it is. It's simply a tax classification, and from our perspective, those employees are being hurt. They're being laid off by the thousands, and it really shouldn't matter where the employee punches in. They should get the same protections that other employees receive. So that's really the message that we're trying to deliver.
Yeah. I know you guys have I'm going to actually put the link in the chat here, but I know you've got a petition that's going around that clubs can sign. Is that still something that people should be doing right now?
Yes, there's a couple of different things. Obviously, the Contact Congress, reaching out directly to your member of Congress and your senators, but there's also an effort being led by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to sign up as many businesses on a letter as possible. I think that letter closes out tomorrow. So if your club hasn't signed that letter from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, please do so.
Yep, I just put the link for everyone to do that in the comments. Go ahead,
fantastic. Joe. Nope, that's fantastic. Thank you.
We do have a question from Michael McCurdy. Is there any particular reason why 501c7s were not included, or was it just literally an oversight?
No, it was really there was no sort of animosity or desire to cut specifically at clubs. There are 29 different categories of 501c organizations. Only 2 were included, C3s, which are the charities, and C19s, which are veterans-related groups. So 27 other categories of 501c organizations did not, get included in the Paycheck Protection Program. I don't think it was necessarily specifically, aimed at clubs or excluding clubs.
And then Jonathan McCabe has one more question for you, Joe. Which 501cs are included in the latest bill?
Again, that's the 501c3s and the 501c19s.
Okay, so it didn't change at all. Basically, they kind of kept.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. What just leave us with something to chew on other than signing the petition. What else can we do to hopefully get clubs included in this?
Again, just continue to reach out.
All right. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was getting some feedback there. Just continue to reach out to your members of Congress, to your senators, and make the case that your employees are, they're hurting, and we want to take care of our people, and there's no reason that if a bartender and at the bar down the street is protected and the bartender at the club isn't. They're doing the same work. There's no justification for it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everything the NCA is doing, and I hope that everyone on this call follows what the National Club's doing for clubs. Their webpage is nationalclub.org/coronavirus. They've been really leading the charge in terms of putting out great information. So, Joe, thank you so much, man. I know your time is precious, and I appreciate you coming on here to share it with us.
Anytime. Thanks, Gabe.
All right. Thanks, guys. I did, by the way, I've just I pretty much muted everyone while Joe was on because we were getting some feedback. So if you're going to chime in here, just make sure to unmute yourself. I'd love to hear, since this is an international forum, from some of the folks outside the U.S. Are there anything that the government's doing in the UK or other places to help clubs? In particular, Bill, I know you're joining us from Scotland. What's happening with you? Hey, Bill Donald, are you on? Yeah. Anyone else want to speak to this at all? You go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm not sure. Well, not just specifically clubs, but over here in the UK, we've got furloughing for employees and stuff. The Scottish union and some of the English unions as well. They're putting together packages for them. I'm sure Bill will obviously know more than I do. A lot of the government side here has concentrated on employees and just basically giving them 80% pay up to $2,500 a month. They're also then paying the national insurance and pension and that for them to try and help sort of ease it over. And then there's a number of loans and that being put in place by the government for businesses in general, so not specifically clubs. Bill, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm sorry the screen froze for a couple of minutes, but I've just come in on the back of that. So yeah, it's called furlough. Sorry if I'm repeating anything Jenny said. And we have got 80% of our staff on this scheme. So we have a skeleton staff, which includes obviously greenkeepers with social distancing in much reduced number. And effectively, we can claim up to £2,500 if that's what their salary stretches to per employee. So what does that equate for us? I've just had the figure actually this morning, and if successful, it means that we can claim back £150,000, which is a significant amount of money through this government scheme. So I think congratulations if it works. I think things could change. They get stringent. The government gets stringent as well whenever the money side of things starts totting up. But as it stands at the moment, it's a very, very good scheme.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the one thing we can do right now here in the U.S. is just make sure we get a hold of the Congress, sign that petition, because it's really a damn shame that clubs have been cut out of this. Like Joe said, I don't think it was necessarily malicious, but it stinks nonetheless. Anyone else have anything to say about this, or any other questions that they want to pose to the group about this particular subject? Okay, we're going to move on then to dining operations. All of our clubs have dining operations. And I know that was a topic that a lot of people wanted to talk about. What does your club do once things open back up? How does service change? How do you take out half the tables in the dining room? I'm going to go ahead and open it up to you guys because this is not my area of expertise, but let me know what your plan is to do at your club.
Okay, well, I mean, certainly from Loch Lomond's point of view, we are discussing, I mean, we have to be advised and guided by the government. It is a slightly strange setup in Scotland because you've got the UK government and then you have a sort of a regional Scottish government as well. So they can be slightly different, but social distancing for members and guests and staff is going to be really, really important. Sanitizers available as well, visible and available. We serve usually food in the locker room, but that will not happen. So I can probably categorically say that's going to happen the rest of the year. It acts as a bit of a restaurant for us, but that too condensed a space with food and drink and everything that goes on. And it's 6 feet between tables. But we're trying to work out from the staff point of view. It's a bit more difficult. We kind of need the staff to buy in to it. There's going to be nervousness possibly. But certainly we'll open up all the rooms in the club in terms of library. We have a drawing room as well, a founder's room. Normally they're redundant during the day, but we'll be opening those up with tables to make sure that the sort of distancing is there. It's about confidence, really, as well as obviously health and safety. So these are the things, couple of things and the menu will be reduced. It'll be a reduced menu as well.
Will your people be wearing gloves, masks? I mean, what's your plan for that, Bill?
Yeah, gloves for sure. That's if we can get hold of them. That is definitely what we're planning. Because I want a member of staff. Certainly, our communication. We're communicating on a weekly basis to the staff. We're continuing to pay staff as well. We've, like a few clubs in the States, we've got a caddy fund, hardship fund going, and seasonal members of staff who are not getting any hours, who've been with us for over 2 years, they're going to get a hardship payment. So that's raised a significant amount of money in a week, which is great. So I think there's a good bit of PR between the club and the staff. But staff member needs to feel safe, or needs to feel at least we've thought about it. So yeah, I mean, the staff are in a good place with the club, and members are trying to support, and the bookings are very, very good, very supportive bookings. But we don't know when we're going to get open. We're hearing, I'm hearing strong rumours that golf clubs in the UK will be open without the restaurants, and maybe clubhouses open in 4 weeks' time. So that's coming through quite strong, and beginning to get more and more messages about that. So there does appear to be some sort of movement somewhere. And we're assuming we're going to be open fully on the 1st of August with rooms and food and beverage. So it's a social distancing, but it's trying to instill confidence in both members and staff. So to do nothing is not an option.
Right. Well said. By the way, let's in the chat, I'd love for you to tell me when you think your particular club may reopen, if it's not open right now, because I just want to kind of gauge a pulse. I know we're all in some ways guessing, but it'd be interesting.
Sorry, okay. Can I add just a little bit from what Bill was saying? I was listening to the conference that was over in the USA yesterday. It was held all day by Club Inc., I think it was. And one of the things that did come up was about food and beverage. And it wasn't quite so much just the club side for social distances. It's when your members are going to become happy to come back. And it's kind of a sort of a question that they were trying to answer at that point. Because as Bill said, it's something obviously we need to instill confidence both ways. But a number of clubs haven't really thought, well, particularly those with the older demographics, are they going to be happy to come back in? And if so, when? So regardless of some things, it might be just something people might want to think about. at their club. Some of the suggestions that came out at that point was to survey the members, sort of ask them when they start would think about it being comfortable to come back and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sorry.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. John Scherer, I know you're on from Charlotte City Club. What are your thoughts? How will your dining operations change?
Well, hi, Gabe. As far as us, Michael's on the call too. So, we're sort of studying what's going on around the world, and certainly we anticipate, as has already been stated, staff as well as members have to feel comfortable in the club, and certainly distancing is going to be paramount. And I don't know if anyone's seen, there was I think it was on CNN, a story on CNN yesterday through the CDC showing a study from China about a restaurant, and the restaurant there was some distancing between the tables, but maybe not enough. But just because of the airflow through that restaurant, there was one person that did not know they were sick at that point, but that one person ended up infecting 9 others. So there was 3 tables that were in relatively close proximity to that, and the way the air was coming out of the vent, it blew across the room. And the issue is that in a dining room where people are seated for extended periods of time, you are susceptible to this. So one thought I had is I suspect we have a whole floor that's dedicated to private party space. I could certainly see us putting parties into the private rooms by themselves and letting them have dining in there. I haven't even mentioned this to Michael, but we have a ballroom that subdivides into 4 different spaces, and we have adjacent private rooms, and we could certainly be doing that. But as far as the actual dining rooms, we're under construction right now, but our actual dining rooms, I think there's going to have to be significant separation. And I think it was already mentioned about the RCS call yesterday, just saying that on the day that you open, you probably only have 15% of your membership that will actually be comfortable coming on day one. It's going to take time before they're going to have this comfort level.
Yeah, well said. I'm just going to note a couple comments that have come in. Kristen Pfeiffer at St. Andrew's Country Club in Boca Raton. They're anticipating their golf and tennis operations to start opening up next week, but the facilities will only be for family members and immediate family members of members and of course members. So that's interesting. Again, let me know in the comments what you guys are doing at your club, because I think it's important for us all to know what each of us is thinking and what's happening around the country and around the world. Who else wants to chime in on this? How will your dining operations change, or what things do you plan to enact at your dining facility at your club? Who else?
Hey, Gabe.
Yep.
John McCabe.
Hey, John.
How you doing, bud?
Good to hear from you.
Good. Hey, still working Dick Durbin. Gabe and I are working on getting Dick Durbin to chime in on the 501c stuff, so we're still working on that.
Cool. Thanks, Dick.
But one of the clubs that I work with is planning on opening up and using their banquet space with spreading tables way far apart. Since they're not going to be doing any banquets, may as well use that space and expand their capacity.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things is clubs locally here in the Chicago area, several of them are actually seeing record volumes based on their takeout over what their a la carte was at this time last year.
Interesting.
Because this is typically a slow season. One of the clubs I work with did 13,000 in Easter last year and 11,000 in takeout Easter this year, and they're having the most profitable March they ever had.
Wow. Yeah, I know we built at my agency, we built something for Bay Hill. It was a menu ordering system, and I see the orders that come through, and there's quite a bit of action. So definitely something to consider moving forward. My thinking right now is, like, I think what everyone's thinking is there's going to be a new normal, at least until there's some sort of major advancements in some sort of a vaccine. So we still need to stay nimble is what I'm saying. I'm going to bring it over to Scott Lockwood at Baltimore Yacht Club. Scott, what are you doing at your club?
Thanks, Gabe. Obviously, if we had our conversation back towards the end of March, we shut it down. Just we thought it was safe for the club and the members, but we're gearing back up, as you said. We're gotten to the point that we're kind of going to start preparing. Want to bring back our full-time staff, and hoping to do start with Mother's Day and kind of offer picnics. Our property is large enough; it's a nice island, and so we won't open up inside unless the weather's kind of foul and people need to pick up food. But the way to pick up food, take it back to their boat, take it back to their houses, or we'll have some kind of picnic areas, spread out over the course of May on the property, within 10 feet of each other, as far as that kind of separation, so they can go to our tents, go to our deck. But we're going to try to encourage them to stay, separated and use our 10 acres of property, our pavilion, and their boats to enjoy the food, and then kind of gauge our staff and them throughout the course of May, what expectations they have, what they're comfortable with, what we see their behaviors over the course of that month. Because we kind of thought that we'd probably be towards the end of May before we could do anything. But I think based upon some of the things we're hearing and some of the things that as long as there's some safe distance, that we've gotten to the point that we can kind of operate this thing pretty strategically and not put anybody in harm's way. So we have 2 people in the kitchen just doing 1 or 2 meals that we'll have structured, let people order them online in 10-minute intervals, and then kind of go from there for how we're going to kind of roll out and start the process to ramp back up and kind of gauge what comfortability level we have with the staff and with the membership. So that's what I got.
I love the picnic idea. That's the first I've ever heard of that. So are you going to actually have picnic baskets, like club branded baskets, or how will you do it?
Well, right now we're going to kind of just, bags and kind of do. I haven't going to take a look at some option with that. I think the branding, because I want people, I don't want to change our service level and kind of want to stay consistent with the branding. I didn't want to say, okay, we're open for these family meals or these things, and people think they're inside or done. So I think picnic, gives them an opportunity to get it in a bag. We'll use to-go containers to kind of start, maybe do some branding as we move along through May, since it kind of just hit me when I heard some other members that were having people on property but kind of spaced out. I thought that we could utilize our property to do that. So that we can do Mother's Day picnic, and I know people are anxious to get out. I've done walking around and seen people in state parks, and I just kind of hit me that I thought that I felt comfortable. I didn't feel threatened by other people that were at distance, that we could utilize our property just for members and get it. So yeah, we'll take a look at the branding aspect of it all, but that's the way we're going to kind of do flyers for the month of May, so that when people come here, they kind of know what they're, even though it'll be in the wording that is a picnic, that it's designed to be outside or enjoyed, not in the club property or in our clubhouse, so to speak, not certainly on the property if they would like to stay here.
I love that. That's incredible. And you got a beautiful property there right on the Chesapeake Bay. For anyone who doesn't know the Baltimore Yacht Club, it's a real garden spot. Anyone else? Thanks, Scott. Anyone else want to chime in here on some ideas that they would have for kind of revamping their operations on the dining side? The other thing I'll put up for discussion here, if anyone wants to chime in, is getting if you've had to furlough employees or if you've had to lay off employees, restaffing. Like what sort of considerations are you making to try to get restaffed as we go through the reopening process? I know Tony Shibayama is on the call. Tony, do you want to chime in about restaffing issues?
Hi, Gabe. I think everybody has made some changes already in regards to layoff and furloughs. I know a lot of clubs are staying in contact with impacted employees via, video with the general managers, helping people collect unemployment, telling them about the $600 extra unemployment. So that's been great. What I'm seeing is people looking at a restart. Who comes back first, what part of the operations, and then slowly reintegrating people back into the fold as well too. And what does that look like? What type of PPE, we call it, personal protective equipment? Does it align with our club colors and everything else? The gentleman that talked about having confidence with the members and also the staff, I think is the most important. And so as you're looking at what parts of the club are going to be back online, doing a really good job. I think a lot of clubs are actually looking at, during this time, which employees have gone above and beyond, which ones are our rock stars, and who do we really want to bring back quickly, but also to taking time to set up our policies, our procedures, and our safety protocol as well too. I actually have several clients that are hiring for a COVID-19 officer, and that person is in charge of everything from the disaster preparedness. If a member gets infected and is at the club, what is the protocol? Making sure that every hour on the hour things are disinfected. And so that's going to be kind of the new normal. But I do think making your club the safest place possible. People are going to be dying to come back out and dine, and hopefully use like your workout facilities that you spend a lot of money on. So if you can make that kind of the safe haven and then build that confidence with the members and the employees, hopefully they'll be coming back to your location first as kind of that safe haven away from home. But really taking your time to set up policies, procedures, and protocol so everybody feels safe. That's what I'm seeing.
That's really good advice there. That's interesting. I never would have thought of it, but a chief COVID-19 officer.
A COVID-19 officer,
wow.
Yeah.
But it's true. You need someone who's going to be responsible, and it probably can't be you as the manager every minute, but someone's got to be responsible for making sure things are up to snuff. That's interesting. Yeah. So just so everyone knows, Tony, she's actually putting together a number of resources for the industry. I'll be doing an interview with her on Private Club Radio this Monday, so make sure that you tune in to the show and see how you can get Tony's resource pack and work with Tony. She's got a number of really great ideas for us. So thank you so much. Before we move on to golf operations side, does anyone else want to chime in on the dining side?
I'll second what John said. Here in the Chicago market, we're doing takeout, curbside pickup food. And I'm busier now than I would be if I were open. I'm averaging 170 covers a night, 5 nights a week, and I would never do that kind of business if I were open. So we're going to double our normal a la carte food sales for the month of April.
Wow.
It's been kind of crazy. What we're hearing back from the membership is mostly that we're offering about 80% of our normal dinner menu. There aren't a lot of places where somebody can get a New York strip steak to go and then get a burger for their kids all in one swoop. So we're filling a niche that isn't available in the marketplace around. So it's a one-stop shop. So it's working out really great for us.
That's fascinating. Before we move on from this subject, I do want to ask the gentleman from the Players, my favorite club in Manhattan. I know you've got a union staff, and other clubs around the country have, it's not that prolific, but there's certainly plenty of clubs that have a union staff. How does that change the dynamic of when you reopen, how you reopen? So Towns or Michael McCurdy, can you speak to that?
Yeah, this is Michael from the Players in New York, and I'm actually in the club right now. I'm in the grill.
Is that who's? Yeah, you got some good artwork behind you.
Basically, just to go back to an earlier comment, we are going to move our grill a la carte operation up to the first floor, which is our banquet floor, with the same ideas that some other people had spoke about: spread people out, move a full-time bar up there. It's difficult for us to break up what we're going to do. We have doormen that are union. We have housemen that are union. We have our kitchen and bartending and waiter staff are all union. So all the same contract issues apply unless we want to choose to re-engage them about something based on this. We haven't yet come up with, well, what would we want to re-engage them in, except possibly, we have a minimum hours per shift. If we found that our operations really wanted to be cut down to, say, a 4 hours in an evening instead of a normal 7-hour shift, maybe we'd engage the union to talk to them about, okay, we want to bring as many people back, but we're only going to bring you back on a 20-hour week or 25-hour week. That's against the contract, but again, it's a new normal, it's a new world. I think it's really going to be, this is the same union in New York that handles the hotels. So they're hurting throughout their entire membership. Yeah. So if we can bring back our employees, I'm sure they'd be at least open to hear what we had in mind. But we haven't really, laid those things out yet. So much is going to happen, especially here in New York, based on what the government tells us. There's thousands and thousands of restaurants in New York and bars and restaurants. So our criteria is going to start with what's allowed here. Are they going to allow 25% capacity, 50% capacity? Do patrons have to wear masks? I think our standard certainly wouldn't be any lower than the government standard. The question is, at some point, for example, the Broadway theaters can't operate at 50% capacity. You can't sell every other seat. They can't make the economics work at 50%. We might be able to do that as well, but a lot of operations can't do that.
Yeah, I think again, getting nimble. There's even if we do open up and there's some government or regional restrictions, you have to get creative right now. I love the picnic idea. That's not a great idea that Scott just brought up, but you're going to have to do something because you're just not going to have the same volume of business.
Gabe, I had a question.
Oh, please. Hey, Kathy.
I had a question. Sorry, it's Kathy
Sure.
down in Florida.
Hadit, by the way. That's how you pronounce her last name for everyone who doesn't know.
Yeah. Before we move on, I was just wondering about reciprocals. So here in Southwest Florida, and I might have missed it because I had another call real quick, but was there any discussion on reciprocals, if you're accepting reciprocals upon reopening or if you're deferring that to be a little later? Our reciprocal season here is in the off season, May 1st through October 31st. And we're definitely putting that off at Pelican Isle Yacht Club probably until July 1st. And then we're going to reevaluate it. But I just wondered if there was any feedback from the group on allowing reciprocals to come into your clubs once they reopen, as well as allowing your members to go out to other reciprocal clubs, or if that safe haven is remaining solely for your members of your clubs at this point.
Mm-hmm. We did hear from the St. Andrews Boca Raton. It's just going to be members and immediate family members allowed at their club. Anyone else doing anything or have thought about that issue?
If I can jump in on a couple of these points from the New York area. First, with regards to outside folks, New York State has been pretty adamant in their rules that we're members only. Just in general, not just on this issue. With regards to golf, we just, and this is kind of 2 or 3 of the issues that have just come up, we've just gotten into the golf issue this week because the governor has in fact allowed, out of the blue, last Friday at noon, allowed golf in New York State. And they've been pretty uncharacteristic and actually said it's up to each club with regards to whether or not you can bring outsiders in. We were thrown for a loop when at noon he changed his executive order and said golf is okay. He also then specifically said it's up to each club to allow outsiders in. Most of our clubs have said no, we're going to really not allow anybody other than families in. Strangely enough, this just came up with regards to tennis in the last probably 72 hours. We've had some clubs that have suddenly said, okay, we're going to allow tennis because the governor's order has in fact been vague with regards to tennis, but they've said we're going to allow family members only. They're not even going to get into the guests. But with regards to, I want to go back to something you asked a few minutes ago, Gabe, about the union issue in New York. The union issue in clubs has been, as Michael mentioned, a factor of what's been done in the hotel business. There was an arbitration settlement, an emergency arbitration settlement, about, probably 3 weekends ago, as Michael knows. We the hotels went to arbitration. The union went to arbitration with regards to the hotels and said, we want 4-month settlements for medical benefits. So that's kind of driven some of the club answers. The union turned around and actually asked the clubs to abide by the same things the hotels did. And not every club has done that. It's been a one-on-one situation. A lot of the clubs are starting to talk about reopening here in New York, or I should say planning, and they're not even talking about anything until September.
Wow.
Frankly, it's a little too difficult. The other issue is hotel rooms. There are a lot of the clubs that are actually, even if they're going to be allowed to reopen, not even talking about opening their hotel rooms until at least this fall, because frankly, with New York occupancies down in the single digits or low double digits, clubs don't see a financial reason to even think about opening their hotel rooms either.
Wow. Yep. Wow.
Hey, Charles, you mentioned golf being allowed. Of course, we don't have a golf course, but do you know what they're doing with public courses, or is it only to the private courses that are?
No, Michael. Actually, it took us a while to kind of figure out the governor's executive orders. There are 3 kind of levels of clubs in New York State. The private clubs, obviously, the private clubs are in fact allowed to be open. The second group of clubs in New York State are those that are under any kind of government regulation, whether it's a municipal course, a state course.
Right.
They, in fact, don't technically fall under the governor's orders. They, it's a little bit of I wouldn't call it even a gray area. The governor just very quietly said, after saying no one can be open, very quietly said that those courses are allowed to do whatever the municipality wants. The third group of clubs are those clubs that are actually owned by private individuals, kind of the public courses, so to speak.
Yep.
And actually, the governor has said they're allowed to be open as long as they follow the kind of the same regulations. So no carts across the state, and you don't even want to get into the conversation about ADA and how that kicks in. I've had literally 50 phone calls and emails in the last 72 hours about ADA, and we've asked the state to give us an official ruling on ADA, and as you're not surprised to hear, legal counsel has been really, how do you politely say, they don't even want to talk about it. But frankly, from an ADA perspective, we've recommended to clubs, do what you need to do, throw yourselves on the mercy, but track everything you've done. So if you come back and a law enforcement comes back and says, we see carts out there, we can say there have been 5 instances with ADA. And then, of course, we've had lawyers come to us and said, well, you're not actually allowed to ask people about ADA if they say they want to fall under the ADA guidelines. It's gotten so unbelievable in detail. So in answer to your question, though, what the biggest problem that we've had with golf in the state is that people drive down the road, they see a course that's run by a municipal facility. That group has decided to let carts out, even though other places can't. And so it's just gotten into this classic case of people not understanding what can and can't be done.
Yeah, there's no consistency. I think that's one of the problems.
Well said, Gabe.
Yep.
Lack of consistency.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that update from New York. I mean, you guys are at the front line, so it'll be interesting to watch what's happening in New York, because that's kind of what might be coming down the line for some of our other states following. Just want to make you aware of some of the conversations happening in the discussion. A number of people, Chris Clodfelter chimed in and said that they're actually having a great F&B operation as well. Chris and Pfeiffer of St. Andrew says they're doing 10,000 per day. So the clubs that were nimble enough to make some of these changes in the beginning, obviously they're reaping the rewards, which is great to see. I'm going to go ahead and shift the discussion now to the golf operations side for the golf courses on the call. What changes have you made at your club, whether it's putting a foam noodle in the in the cup. I think my most recent one I saw was, it's like a device where you lift up the cup with your golf club and you can pull the ball out, and it kind of releases the ball out for you, so you never have to even stick your hand even in the little cup. What are you doing at your club, and what changes will you be making that will carry through even once we start to reopen? Maybe we got no golf courses on. Nobody from a golf course on this call? Come on, guys.
Well, our golf is, we're closed by state order, so, and I have no idea when we're going to open. States above us, Wisconsin's going to open up golf here, I think, this weekend. Indiana, they can still play golf. And I think they're going to open up Michigan courses here not that long. Our governor's being very cautious. You know, I think in our planning, we're going to be putting a little insert into our cup to make the ball easier to retrieve, so you're not reaching into the cup to get your ball or having to remove the pin to get it. You know, it will depend on a lot of what we're going to do is what the state's going to allow. Initially, they said you could play golf, and then they said no. Then they said, well, you can play golf as long as you practice social distancing and there's no staff around. And then they came back and said, no golf. So we're still in the no golf piece, and I don't know when it's going to break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're closed as well in Scotland, Loch Lomond. So our official season was the 3rd of April. So we obviously didn't get opening. And, you know, we're discussing the changes now that we're starting to get information through yesterday and today that we could actually open soft opening golf only in 4 weeks' time. The conversation is now switched to what do we do on the golf course. But we have a concierge service where we normally you drive up to the clubhouse, we take the car off you, and you know, you guys know what I'm talking about, you all probably do the same, and we park your car and take your bag out. So we're talking about not the member must park their own car and take their golf bag out. So there's a bit of a down. If it's golf only, there's a dumbing downness, which we don't really want to do, but you know, we're going to have to do it. And I really love the picnic idea that was mentioned. We've talked about something similar, or a barbecue on the go as well. And so, you know, you make your order. We have a phone on the 8th, which is or 3 at Loch Lomond, and you phone in your order. Well, that phone will not be in operation. So you basically make your order for food on the 1st. And we'll have some sort of system that we haven't worked out yet what we'll do with regards to that as well. So it'll be a huge dumbing down of the operation until we get fully opened. I suppose just a side issue to it is that we do, and we have worked out, and it's not rocket science, but if it's just golf only with sort of takeaway food, it's actually probably going to cost us even more money to open the club up without a proper food operation. Or we have 50 odd rooms as well, which hits sort of 90% occupancy in the season, and none of those rooms are occupied. So actually we'll be opening up and it'll be costing even more money to operate under those circumstances. But there's a bit of a PR side to it as well, of course.
Sure. Yep.
But you know, we kind of have to work through that. But the service will be, we haven't quite worked out 100% what we're going to do in the golf course, but the service is definitely going to be much reduced.
Yep, exactly. The other thing I like to bring up, a couple of things that I heard, because a lot of people are kind of coming at me throughout the week with ideas, and service providers are throwing things my way. A couple interesting things that I think we all need to start thinking about is really moving away from paper. One of the gentlemen he's doing paperless scorecards. So basically what he'll do, and again, I'm going to have this guy on Private Club Radio to talk about it, but he's going to put a QR code right at the first tee box. You scan it with your phone and boom, you've got the scorecard. You're ready to go. It's a really interesting, little, very simple app that he's put together, but it doesn't have to take the place of your existing apps or do anything there's no overhead. I think he's giving it away for free to start too, which is really cool. But I think you need to think about doing that, getting rid of paper on the golf side as well as the dining side. We might want to really think about paperless menus. Just having a website people can look at to order off of the quote unquote virtual menu. If anyone needs any help setting that kind of stuff up, just come to me. I'd be willing to help you out and show you how that can pretty much be easily accomplished. But I think getting rid of paper is one thing we've got to do both on the F&B and golf side. Who else wants to chime in terms of golf operations here?
Gabe, Chris Clodfelter at Valley Brook in Pittsburgh.
Hey, Chris.
Let me give you, we've been kind of rogue versus what the governor of Pennsylvania has advocated. We've taken the approach of kind of, and I hate to say this, but less is more on the communication. We're one of only the few clubs in the area that have allowed members to actually walk the course. We stated clubhouse is closed, course is closed. We put signs up, member only, but there were days like this last Sunday, we probably had 150 golfers out here. We've been advocating that they play in threesomes or foursomes at the most, social distancing. And we took this approach only because our legal committee had suggested that the members are owners of the property. Therefore, if they want to walk their club property, maybe they carry golf clubs with them, maybe they don't, then they have every right to do that on their property. So we've been somewhat rogue, and other clubs have had the state police and local police stop and shut them down. We haven't had that. So it's worked out well for us, and it's something to give the members something to latch on to, because we're still charging full dues like many. We're also looking at ways to move forward. We had about an hour-long golf committee meeting last night talking about what the next steps are, because there's the potential sometime mid-May that the governor of Pennsylvania will allow golf. And so we started talking about which employees will be here, how many, we're actually 27 holes with no tee time. So members can go off any of the 3 separate nines anytime they want. So we're actually looking at implementing a tee time system, only allowing you to show up 10 minutes before or 15 at the most before your actual tee time. Driving range is only available for 10 minutes prior to your tee time. Looking at different ways to keep the social distancing intact. No scorecards. I like the QR code idea. We've sent everybody an email link to our scorecards that are members. We've been advocating no guests. We have 100 golf carts, so 1 person per cart unless you are an immediate family, husband, wife, then you can ride in the same cart. That's what we're going to allow. But outside of that, we're thinking about setting up a station similar to a car wash where the members put their cart or their bags on the cart. They're responsible for stopping, putting all their trash in the trash cans when they finish, and then we'll have staff all suited up, ready to go to spray down the carts and wash them. We're actually renting 50 extra carts here beginning of May, so we'll have 150. So we're trying to be as proactive as we can to keep members able to play golf. It's a really big deal for a lot of clubs, and I think this is something that a lot of places have to look at. From the golf course side, we used to have the cups upside down for the last month so that you only had to reach into about 1.5 inches into the hole. Our superintendent has put something in the cups yesterday that essentially is like a little washer that keeps the ball from going more than 2 inches into the hole. So you can grab down with 2 fingers and pick the ball out. We've advocated no touching of any flag sticks on the course. It's been quite a challenge, but it's been really good for our members. Our only problem is we see people from other clubs who are showing up to play, and technically since we're not open, we can't have someone out there policing the course that's on staff. So we've encouraged our members, if they see somebody that they know is a member of another club, kindly ask them to leave the property, that this is only for Valley Brook members.
Wow. Yep. Well, that's good. Thanks for the update, Chris. That's interesting. Before we move on, who else wants to chime in about golf operations? Any other ideas that you've seen out there? Please, we can all stay safe. It's interesting, like just costs have to be going up. I mean, if everyone's taking a golf cart, that's 4 golf carts, or it's at least 2 extra golf carts per group charging at night. It's there's so many little things involved here. I assume we're all going to have to really look at the bottom line on some of these issues. It's mind-boggling, but you guys are doing your best, which is great to see. I'm gonna Chris did finally join us, so I wanted to quickly bring him on to talk about Start Ugly, because again, I think it's what we're all doing right now is we're having to come up and be nimble and create solutions that we would never have dreamed of 3 months ago. And Chris wrote this amazing book. Chris, I'd love for you just to come on and share with us why you decided to give that Start Ugly away for free, and why people should maybe send this to their members. Chris Kremitzos.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Hey.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote this book before, obviously, any of this stuff, what was going on with the pandemic, but it just, you notice people get entrenched in the way of doing things and they get stuck. And Start Ugly was really written in a parable format about a person that was doing something very well successfully for a long time. And then as innovation and change started happening, he got stuck and he lost his way. So it's really a really short story that takes about maybe 40 minutes to an hour to read. And we released a Kindle version this week free of charge on Amazon, all until Friday at midnight. We've already had every day hundreds and hundreds of people are downloading it. We're #1 in business, #1 in HR for Kindle free, and it's just a short story to remind people. So what happens, especially in times like this, you can't really see the forest through the trees. You guys are really ahead of the curve because you're on this call and you need to compare notes. That's unusual. Most people are just scared and they're staying there. So you're working through that. So the book is really for us to send to our family, friends, our teams. When they read it, they're able to kind of see that they have to identify things to start ugly, and it's a really great conversation starter, and it's been a really great team builder for people to kind of share, like we have to do things differently without having to tell them that as they read the story of our main character going through getting stuck in what we call perfect execution mode and not realizing you have to innovate. And right now, I mean, we all know this, but technology, biotech, everything, the innovation that's going to happen in the next couple of months. I have a friend that makes the hotel key cards for hotels. I mean, there's a good possibility that entire business will go by the wayside because people will just leapfrog it to phones because people won't want to touch the cards. So there's all these things that are happening right now that we don't even see happening, but you got to be on calls like this where you could compare notes to see what everybody's doing.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Chris. You're right. You're 100% right. The other thing I want to say to everyone out there is, the philosophy in Chris's book is Start Ugly is, especially during this time, we may not be able to perfectly execute. We may not be able to have the same chain of command. Historically, a lot of things happen very slowly at clubs because of the chain of command, because of the structure and the different levels that it needs to be approved through. I don't know if any clubs are changing some of that. Are you managers getting a little bit more leeway from your boards in terms of making some of these hard decisions right now? Can anyone chime in on that?
Yeah, I mean, from our point of view, again, at Loch Lomond, Scotland, the board are, because they're all business owners, and we have all from around the world as well. A couple from the States are on the board. So they're very much guided, I think, by what the management team are going to provide to fit their club. And while revenue's been lost, I think there's definitely a move towards protecting the staff for sure. And money will be spent on that. It's you're buying for the long term, really. So the board have been very supportive, fully supportive. They understand what you're up against.
Yeah. Bob Srecci, you joined us. How about you? How are you getting? I know your board's been very lenient with you to begin with. You've done some amazing things at Medina. So how are things right now for you?
Gabe, we're doing well. We're doing well, but I think they're looking to us to give them
a sense of what the future looks like. It's all about alleviating their anxiety. I think we're looking really hard developing a plan, an action plan for now. But what we're really working on is what life looks like beyond June, July, and August. And personally, while I won't say this publicly, I think my team and I are really excited, because when can you get a board to be open-minded and as flexible than we have right now? I mean, this is a golden opportunity for us to rethink our business model, our org charts, our service offerings, our touch points. And you can't ask for a better opportunity right now, because everybody's open-minded. They're willing to try, willing to listen. We're not going to get this chance again. And not only is it a unique opportunity, but I think our club's success hinges on that. And I think for us, we are completely revaluing our work chart. We're revaluing our service offering. We're revaluing our touch points. And our biggest concern is I don't think we're making the appropriate investments. What we thought was an appropriate investment 5 months ago, for sure it's not. We are reviewing where we're spending our money, our resources. We have to redeploy resources. Communication, we had a 1.5 person budgeted for communications. That's not going to fly right now. You got to have at least 2-3 people working on communications, video. We're looking at investments for outside. If the pool is closed for 3 months and we have 1,000 members, right? So there's no camp, no pool, there's no events outside like football, baseball. So we have to rethink our service offering and how do we space them out? How do we keep them engaged? So for us, they're waiting for us to come up with solutions. If we waited for the board to do it, I'm highly skeptical, because they're just worried about the now. And our challenge is we want to make sure we reassure them so they don't do anything stupid in the short term. They can have unintended consequences in the future.
Yep. Well said. I love your viewpoint there, that this is a golden opportunity. This is a time to implement some things that you might have been thinking about, but maybe couldn't have gotten approval on before. Again, that's why I think Chris's book is really useful to everyone, not only to you people, to you folks on the call, but also your members, I think, would love that book. So please do share the link. It's 100% free until Friday.
Gabe, just to Chris's point, I just posted something on LinkedIn not too long about perfectionists.
Yeah.
And I have a few friends that are just they're going crazy right now.
Yep.
Because they are so hung up on details, and they're having a hard time being nimble and just living with good enough.
Yep.
And it's kind of funny and it's a little distressing to see them go through this difficult time. So what's interesting, if you ask folks in the past to think about a food to go program, it would have required probably months to get it done right. Now they get it done in like 6 days. So it's interesting that when there is a will and there's motivation, people are nimble and can. And again, to Chris's point, you start ugly, right? It's all about getting it out there, execution, and learning from that, because 70% is good enough.
Yeah.
So I absolutely appreciate what Chris says, and it's never more important than that and than now.
Yeah. I don't know if you were on for this part of the call, but Scott Lockwood at Baltimore Yacht Club is doing picnics for members, which I thought was a really fantastic idea. You got to be spaced down at least 10 feet apart, but they're doing outdoor picnics. That's my favorite idea of the session. Guys, it's we're past noon. And so I want to start to wrap things up here. I really appreciate everyone who's stuck on the call. Basically, everyone stayed here even past the hour. This has always been just one of my highlights of the week. We'll be doing this again next week. Probably about the same time next week. I'll shoot you guys an invitation. I could really, really, really use your help. If this has been helpful for you, I really need your help. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Once I do that, I can actually monetize my YouTube channel, which is crazy. But I've been self-funding this thing for the last 9 months. It's been, again, another labor of love, because I really want to grow golf and grow the private club industry through the game of golf. But you could help me so much by just simply subscribing to the channel. I'm going to put the link in the chat for everyone. And not only that, but please just share it with your members. They're all sitting at home. They're bored. They've got nothing to do. This is something entertaining. It's a golf travel show, so they can actually experience another place. Last week I was in Ecuador, climbing 444 steps, tasting some of the local foods in Ecuador, and playing a really nice private club, Guayaquil Country Club. It's experiences like that. People need something to kind of live through vicariously. So if you can find it a way to float it out there, float Chris's book out, float my link to the show out, and ask people to just simply subscribe. It costs them nothing. And that would really, really help me a lot. I'd certainly appreciate it. If before everyone goes too, please, we're going to be doing this call again next week. If you've got a real specific subject that you want to touch on, something that you want to discuss and bring to the table, again, we have a once in a lifetime opportunity right now to have people from all over the world who are coming and sharing their ideas. We never get this. This didn't exist really in the same way that it does right now, where people are opening up and sharing and really driving this industry forward. So please leave me a comment in the chat about what you'd like to hear about, what subjects you want to discuss next week. And if you don't have a chance to put it in the chat, please just email me because I want to be able to discuss what you guys find important. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate it. My highlight of the week. Thank you all for being here.
Hey, Gabe, just so you know, people think you were in Ecuador last week. He filmed it a while back, and then he released it last week.
Right. Yeah,
He's been in quarantine like the rest. Gabe doesn't have some special privileges that no one knows about.
I've got a teleporter. Yeah.
He's got a private jet. He goes wherever he wants.
I thought they were still in Ecuador.
Oh, I almost got stuck. I just missed getting stuck there, which is pretty bad down there. So, yeah. All right, guys.